Hi, how's it going? I'm Josh.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're here with MPB to talk about some of our favourite lenses we've used over the years, what we use them for, and why we like using them. So today we're going to be talking about three lenses. We're going to talk about the Fuji XF 56 1.2, the Sony 24-70 2.8 G Master, and the classic Canon 50mm 1.8 Nifty 50. So let's kick off with Shane and the
XF 56 1.2, this is a lens I've used for about 5 years in street photography because it's a 56mm lens on an APS-C sensor, and that's the equivalent on a full frame of an 85mm lens. So 85mm is very typical for fashion, for portraiture. It's a nice long focal length. There's very little distortion in it. And the thing about this lens is that it goes all the way to f1.2, so it's incredibly shallow and it gives you a really nice subject isolation. You get a very soft, kind of creamy, out of focus area in the background. And that's why it's used for fashion and portraiture, because it isolates the subject so effectively. And that's also why I've used it for street photography.
I love that it has the manual aperture ring on there, nice little feature to have.
Yeah, because it's a Fuji lens, you know, they're very big on sort of manual controls. So it's got a really smooth aperture ring here, and the focus ring is quite big, really easy to use as well if you want to use it manually, which I don't think most people do because, you know, it's a pretty good autofocus system, but the downside is it's not up there with modern autofocus systems.
It's like a bit slow, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit slow. Like it wouldn't be as fast as any of the Sony lenses you're used to.
No way.
And it's not as fast as any of the more modern Fuji lenses. But I find if you do pair this lens on a modern Fuji camera like the X-T4 or X Pro 3, it does keep up with it. It's not really that noticeable that it's super slow, but it's just, you know, there's so much glass in this lens. It's so heavy that just trying to move around all that glass is a bit slower than you might expect it to be.
And just to have like an 80mm equivalent lens at 1.2 in such a small package like that is crazy, right?
Yeah, like you'd never find f1.2 85 in a lens this small normally. Like if you look at the Canon or f85 1.2, it is huge. It's about 3 times as big as that lens. Yeah. So yeah, size is a huge factor with this. It's really small, it's really compact, so that's why I use it for street photography as well. Just to get 85 1.2 that you can use on the streets sort of candidly. People don't really notice it. It's easy to carry around, it's not too heavy. That's why I love this lens, and that's why I've used it for over 5 years.
And I suppose it's a bit pricey, £650, £700 for a APS-C lens, but I suppose when you look at 1.2 lenses for full frame, like you said, it's a good deal, I think.
Like because you are getting 1.2, and that's really, really fast. Like most fast lenses go to f1.4, but 1.2 is just that step faster. So yeah, it is quite pricey at about 600 to 700 used. There's something about this lens that has a lot of character to it.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you can really factor in to newer modern lenses. There's just something sort of special about it, I guess. Yeah, it's an incredible lens. I definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you're into portraiture, fashion, or street photography, anything like that. I think it's really good. So next up, I think you're going to talk about the lens we're actually filming with right now.
Yeah, so we're actually filming on my 24-70 2.8 Sony G Master lens. I absolutely love shooting with a 24-70 lens. I love that you can use it for absolutely anything. You can use the wide end to do landscapes, architecture. You can use the long end towards 70mm to take portraits or just hone in on details. If you put a 24-70mm lens on your camera, it's really just, for me, just to kind of do everything. Absolute workhorse, reliable. You don't have to really worry about changing lenses. I just think they're just a blast to use.
Yeah, like especially on commercial work where you don't have time to change lenses because you're eating into other people's time, so you're very conscious of that. So just having one that can sort of do everything, and especially at f2.8, you don't really need to go faster than that, I think.
No, I mean, yeah, it's nice. Most zoom lenses are around f4, f5.6, so you do get that extra stop of light with 2.8. It's obviously nothing compared to your 1.2, but for the size and weight of the zoom lens, I think it is best to keep them around 2.8. And that really is probably the only reason I would ever take this lens off the camera, is just because of the size and the weight. if I could get a 24-70 that was this size, I would probably never take it off my camera. That's probably the only lens I would ever use, but for the most part, sometimes it does get a bit much carrying around this big chunky zoom lens, so I sometimes do like to go for a smaller prime. But yeah, I absolutely love using a 24-70. We're using it for video now. It's a great versatile option for video because we can quickly adjust the framing, we can get a bit of a wider angle, crop in.
Yeah, I love using it for video because you're not really sure how wide you want to shoot. I think it also allows you to be a bit more creative because if you have it, like if you don't have to change the lens, I think you're much more likely to try different options. So you might try a wide option, you might try, you know, the opposite wide, closer. Yeah, I think it helps you be more creative, I think.
And I think if you're a working photographer, just a 24-70 is just like the first lens you buy, really, isn't it? That's just your go-to. So yeah, I love 24-70. I also had one on my Nikon D850, the 24-70 2.8 on that as well. And when I moved to the Sony system, I knew I had to go for a 24-70, and that was the first lens I got.
Yeah, and you used a 24-70 for street photography as well, which is kind of unusual. Like, not many people use zoom lenses for street photography. I can only think of Martin Parr who does that. But
I mean, yeah, I love using a 24-70 for street. I just had to remind myself to switch the lens back to 24mm after I take a shot, and that's something I get used to doing, just so it kind of like resets so you know that's your starting point. I think that's what works for me, using it on the street.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. So you get used to seeing in 24mm, but then if you do want the option of getting closer,
if you miss something, you can quickly zoom in a bit, but I do often find myself just shooting everything at 24mm. So that's the Sony 24-70 2.8, and now I thought we would talk about a lens that we both love using.
Yeah, the Canon Nifty 50 older EF lenses. So you've got the really, really old one, which is the EF2 macro.
And these can be picked up for about £55 used from MPB, so it's an absolute steal for a 50mm prime lens.
Yeah, that's crazy. 50mm prime f1.8 lens for 50 quid that you can use on film cameras, you can use on DSLRs like this, 6D, and you can also use on the newer Canon RF systems with just a simple adapter. The one I have here is the slightly newer version. It's the 50 1.8 STM lens. So I find that the focus is just a little bit faster in this.
The focus, it gets focus, it's just a bit slow and it's quite loud. But yeah, I mean, I have been thinking about trying that's £90, isn't it, as well? So,
this is £90, it's so cheap as well.
Yeah, so you can do anything with these. Portraits, street photography, get a nice depth of field as well at 1.8. This one in particular, because it's a bit older, it does have this slightly quite dreamy, soft look to it, which I really like personally. But
yeah, I can imagine that on film would look really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I use this. I've used this solidly for like a year. When I got the Canon 60, my purpose was to use this for night photography, and using the 50 1.8 just gave me enough light to use at night, and I got really, really good results with it. It focused at night, like instantly. So yeah, this became one of my favorite lenses, and I found that I ended up buying more expensive lenses because I naturally thought, well, more expensive is going to be better. But then I always came back to this lens. So this is absolutely one of our best lens recommendations.
You love that 6D, don't you?
Yeah, I just use it all the time. I just love the sensor on this camera. It gives you a different sort of color, I think, and it's incredible at night. And with this 50 1.8 lens, it's just a really great bargain. It's super cheap and just works.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
So, those are 3 of our favourite lenses, why we like using them, what we use them for. All of them can be picked up on mpb.com. Thank you for watching along, and see you next time.